for the opportunity. One of the things is we're building a group called Steps and Ladders. I have a business background and had worked on this concept with a friend, Mario Webb, who's a contractor. So we thought the combination of the two was something that allowed us.
There's some conversation going on in the background if anybody can mute.
We're live. Go ahead, David.
Can we start with roll call, please?
Director Brown,
Here.
Vice Chair Josie,
Here.
Director Warner,
Here.
Chair Halbert.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 3. Anybody in the public wish to speak?
There are no attendees to this meeting, and I did not receive public comment via email from anyone.
Thank you. Item 4. Move approval.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chair Josie,
Aye.
Director Warner,
Yes.
Chair Halbert.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Item 5.
That one's mine. So we have a contract with Lamar Transit Advertising for the sale and installation of advertisements on the exterior of our buses. The contract started in July of 1997, had an initial 3-year term, and contained 2 option years. We exercised 1 option year last year. And this action item before you is the exercising of option year 2 of that contract. So what happened last year was the contract year runs July 1 to June 30th. And we were a few months into the pandemic, and advertising sales, not just with Lamar and with transit advertising, but in general, advertising sales really took a dive. So Lamar approached us about changing the terms of our contract from a minimum annual guarantee, or a MAG as they call it, to simply a 50-50 split of revenues, which is the other component of our contract. There's a minimum guarantee, and then there's a 50-50 split of revenues once we reach $190,000. So their proposal was to just go with the 50-50 split. The board approved that. We've been under that contract term for the present year. And so the proposal before you is to continue that 50-50 split for the final year of the contract, and then go back out and solicit proposals later this year or early next year when the economy is a little better.
Do you need a recommendation or a
And-
motion to?
Yes.
Any comments or questions or points of clarification? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll have a question. So,
Commissioner Brown.
has there ever been any discussion about another vendor, or has this been the sole vendor for this type of product in the area?
It's not the only vendor. When we went in 1997, I was kind of new. And we went out with the request for proposals, and Lamar was the only proposer. A lot of times when a transit advertising vendor gets established in a location, other vendors don't typically bid against them. I don't know why. But I think you might have some interest. There is There are some other companies that sell advertising, and I think we might get some interest from Vector, for example. They do County Connection.
Mhm.
But to put an RFP on the street right now, I think you'd be looking at lower guarantees based on the current economy than if we were to wait and let things improve a little bit before they have to submit their proposals.
Yeah, I've seen the quality of their advertising materials, and just the graphics are extremely upscale, which is important as you're riding around on a bus, that it's not some tacky little ad that isn't a kind of product. I mean, they're jewelry stores and they're nice products. So I guess I'm not in favor of making a change necessarily. I'm just wanted to ask the question for clarification. So that's my question, and I'm willing to make a motion, but I want to let questions continue first, David.
Any other questions?
David
I got my
Bogorno has
hand.
his hand raised.
Yeah, somehow I had not seen all the hands being raised. I'll ask the clerk to call the next questions.
All right. So I just wanted to understand the advertising a little bit more. So the target audience for the ads is who? Is it, I mean, the writers plus anybody who observes it, or
Well,
how do we think about the target audience, and how tied is it to the recovery of the ridership, or is it more broadly to the economy? I don't understand what the driver of the value of the advertising is.
well, the most valuable piece of advertising on a bus is on the driver's side. So that tells you that they're not going after the passengers. They're going after cars. And so they don't even sell interior advertising. So
Okay, so that answered that. So then is advertising in general fallen off in value to people in this economy? I mean, are other platforms for the advertising seeing a similar issue?
yes, I've spoken with our contacts at KKIQ. Their advertising revenue's fallen off significantly, and the Pleasanton Weekly has had such a loss of advertising revenue that they've started talking about a different delivery model where perhaps they were going to go to paid subscriptions because
Okay.
the advertising had dropped off.
So we're highly dependent on the economy coming back, and so the advice is just keep the current thing that we have going for whatever value it is, and then we'll revisit it when we think it's opportune. That's what I'm hearing.
Right. I can tell you that just for example, in the last 2 years ago, before we even knew what COVID was, our share of the revenue was $123,000. Last year, with 4 months of COVID impact, we were down to $103,000. This year, we're tracking to come in around $60,000.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You bet.
Vice Chair Josie, you can go ahead.
Thank you. At the risk of getting us off track, the KKIQ advertising being down makes perfect sense in conjunction with bus advertising being down, because both would depend on commuters. I would think the drive time radio would be the highest advertising hours. Did the Pleasanton Weekly folks have an idea of what part of the economy being down was driving advertising to be down?
This was actually an article I read in the Pleasanton Weekly. It was not based on a conversation with them. But if you're aware of the Pleasanton Weekly, I'm assuming that the fact that Jeans no longer puts a 4-page color advertisement in the middle of every week's edition of the Pleasanton Weekly had something to do with their advertising revenue dropping off significantly.
I'm not sure I've ever seen their actual paper edition, so thank you.
Carla Brown.
Yeah, I'll just volunteer, Jean.
Okay.
I have some family members that are in the marketing and advertising industry, and the losses are so significant because people are just trying to pay salaries and keep their business going. Real estate is very slow. You just put a house on the market and you get 10 offers. So the idea, I know the Pleasanton Weekly has a significant portion of their ad income comes from real estate agents. There's so few houses on the market, they sell so quick, you almost don't need to do that. So I think when businesses are really struggling, they look to make cuts, and marketing and advertising is one of the first, and then they sustain. Of course, you have to pay rent and your employees.
Right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Bren,
Yes.
Vice Chair Josie,
Yes.
Director Warner,
Yes.
Chair Halbert.
Yes,
Passes unanimously.
thank you. Item 6.
All right. So item 6, yep, it is the executive director's report. You've got a little bit of ridership information in your packet. Basically, the trends remain with about 1,200 rides being provided daily, as opposed to over 7,000 pre-COVID. So I think what we're really working towards is the schools reopening. There's been a lot of discussion on that, and that will certainly drive your ridership upwards, but also put a lot of pressure on us to make sure that masks are being worn and social distancing or physical distancing is being adhered to as folks wait to get on the bus and are on the bus. Tony, I know hopefully you haven't stepped away, but just is there like a 30-second kind of review of what's going on with the schools and the reopening, that you've been tracking this super closely,
Right.
that you might want to provide to the board?
So Pleasanton's school board last Thursday voted to bring students back. The first thing for secondary schools, which is where we provide student transportation, middle and high schools, Alameda County has to go into the red tier. And that is, according to the trend lines, it looks like it's either going to happen tomorrow or next Tuesday. They announced those tier moves on Tuesdays. So it's either going to be tomorrow or next Tuesday. But what they made clear was they weren't going to change the date. The date was established as May the 8th to start middle school and May 11th to start high schools. And that was kind of based on an assumption they were going to hit the red tier on May the 2nd. And then they have to count 5 days from that before they could start schools. Someone asked a question, what if we hit
In
it?
March, sorry, you said May 2nd. You think you mean March, just to be clear.
Just- I guess I was hoping for May 2nd. The extra time would have done us some good. But no, you're right, March. So it's March 8th and March 11th for the starts. And so we've been working rather feverishly to pull together schedules based on their new bell times. They're really only going to school half a day. So it's 8:30 arrival time in the morning and then dismissal around 12:30. And we do have enough operators in place right now to provide the same level of service that we were providing last year. So the good news is that we think that will be sufficient, given the fact that only 50% of the parents said they were going to send their students back to in-classroom instruction. So that drops the number of riders we expect by about 50%. And secondly, they have A-B groups, so that number gets dropped in half again. So we were expecting loads around 25% of what we were carrying last year. And with the level of service we provided last year, we should still have no difficulty in maintaining the 6-foot social distancing on board the buses. Pleasanton Unified has agreed to do a survey of parents who have indicated they're going to have their child return to in-classroom instruction. and ask them the question, how do you intend for your child to get to and from school, with 3 choices, walking, biking being 1, car or carpool being 2, and wheels bus being 3. So we should have a pretty good idea of the expected loads that we're going to see starting March 8th.
Any
I don't think
questions?
Chair Hubbard, I don't think we've heard much from Dublin, although we're reaching out to all 3 superintendents. And yeah, I was interested to know if Vice Chair Josie might be hearing what they're thinking.
I've reached out to them and spoke with a board member. They have a meeting tomorrow night where their return to school is an action item, not an information item. So hopefully we'll get a date. I reminded them that they need to make sure that they are including wheels in those conversations so that nobody gets taken by surprise. They are intending to put out a survey to parents later this week, Wednesday, Thursday, I believe. So I'll reach out again and make sure that Wheels Bus is included in that survey to make sure that they're asking parents if they're intending to put kids back on the bus to go to school. So I'll reach out as well. I'm sure that you guys will also reach out, but having people talking to them from more than one direction is not a bad idea.
Yep, agreed. Anything else? Director's report?
Just a quick mention. You probably read it in the report, but we're getting really close to being done with the rapid bus stops on Santa Rita, and that bike station is starting to get some traction too. It's a fix-it station. Actually, you put your bike on the pedestal there, and then there's some tools that hang down with by cable, where you can do minor adjustments on your bike or tighten stuff up. And then we've got that inflator, and it's pretty bomb-proof. It's a really good setup. So my hope is that we can expand and put a few more of those in our system where it makes sense. But we're starting to get the word out to Bike East Bay and to some other organizations about that, and make sure they're aware of what we've done there. If you have questions in regard to the Dublin parking garage, Jennifer Yeamans really has been working closely with the county. And Chair Hubbard, I'll look for a time to sit down with you and give you a good briefing on that project, as well as some of the other projects that we have with the Valley Link and so on.
Great.
And then with the zero emissions bus study, the Center for Transportation and the Environment is working on kind of the draft to present to the board on a game plan for zero emissions moving forward. And there's been lots of discussion about hydrogen, lots of opportunity actually that's emerging with hydrogen, including interest by Gillig in creating a hydrogen bus, and a couple of projects emerging in Livermore that could provide hydrogen for the project. So Chair Warner has been really involved with that. He met with the other mayors in the Tri-Valley today to talk to Derek, the CEO at Gillig, and there's some real promise there, and we'll reconvene in a month with information on potentially how to get Gillig up and going R&D wise, so that those buses can become available to both County Connection and LAFTA or Wheels. And I don't know if you had any more you wanted to add to that, Mayor Warner. I know you've been just really super involved with that and getting the vision and the action set to move that.
Well, if I may, and then Carla can weigh in too, perhaps. But the idea of the meeting this morning was just to get the mayors together from the Tri-Valley, as well as people from San Ramon and Danville, and to see how much interest there was in trying to go seek funding for something along, some kind of grants in conjunction with Gillig. It's also something that the Alameda County Transportation Commission could be interested in. We have a chance to also bring in the lab scientists from both Sandia and Livermore Lab. So I'm excited about the potential for getting the funding with the new administration from both the federal and also from the state. So I think we also agreed that Michael, you and Rick from what's it called up in the Contra Costa one, but
County Connections.
yeah, the county connection would be on point to sort of scope out what we're really talking about, who could be involved, where could we get funding, and just give us a sense of whether this makes any, if it's real or not. So that's where we're at. So I think it was the initial meeting, and I was encouraged that we could get somewhere. Carla, what's your take?
Yeah, I thought it was a very positive meeting. I heard 5 mayors excited about moving things forward and continuing the conversation. But if Wheels wants to be a part of that long ride all the way up the 680 corridor, electric buses won't have the span or the distance, and hydrogen buses will offer that. Plus, they will offer zero emissions, but only if we get hydrogen manufactured with zero emissions through something like electrolysis,
Electrolysis, yeah.
electrolysis, through some sort of manufacturing. Plus, the fuel cost is pretty high right now for hydrogen. So we'll have to look at quantity, bringing that down. It was an interesting chart where you had battery powered electric buses versus hydrogen buses. And if you've got scale, you've got quite a few buses, the hydrogen is the more economic version. So that was an interesting data point, but it was the beginning of a long discussion, I'm sure. It's going to be an expensive discussion because according to my notes, hydrogen buses are very expensive and they are heavy. So you need the fuel to take them down the road, but they have great potential. And all of us that are working on our CAP 2 for our city should be thinking about how we can clean our air for zero emissions. And the partnership with Wheels could be really, really important. So thanks for organizing it, Bob. And it was perfect timing.
Yeah, so David, we're going to rope you into it as soon as I get off the Wheels board. Then we won't have problems with too many of us in one of these meetings. But
not a problem. Hey, listen, circling back, we talked about Gillig, and tell Derek I said hi. I think we should have a discussion with him. One of very well-run organization right here in our backyard, ways that we can support them nationally by doing things locally is a good conversation to have.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'll say is that what he pointed out was, they want to do things right. They don't want to get into this and then have it kind of be a black mark. And they also want to make sure that what they can do is consistent with the timing that the various organizations have for needing these buses. And there's an opportunity, I think, to match up the schedules. The other piece of information is, I forget the name of the organization, has got looking at on a 5-acre site in Livermore to put a major hydrogen fueling station in. So
Great.
A lot of pieces are coming together here. And if we all band together with the scope we've got across 2 counties, we should have a good shot at this.
Very good. Mr. Tree, anything else on executive directors?
Hey, I think the only other thing I'll say is that at your upcoming board meeting on Monday, we certainly have like a comprehensive review of each of your capital projects, because there's a few of them and some of them are pretty significant regionally. And so we'll give you an idea of where we're at with them and where we're going on those.
Great.
Chair, could I be recognized?
Please.
I just have to say, Michael and Wheels and Tony and Tone, the rapid stops on Santa Rita look so good. The rapid disc up there is so eye-catching, and the clean glass on the bus stops are so much prettier than the old artistic drawings that were there before. It just looks clean and sharp. I love the lit areas, so it really catches your eye in the evening. And even if it isn't a full shelter, those new benches look really good. So I'm so happy. I know it's a long time waiting. We've been talking about it for at least 4 years, and it looks gorgeous. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We've certainly
Awesome.
made a lot of progress. I would agree.
Yeah, Jennifer Yeamans has been the lead on that. So anyway, I'm sure she heard you, Director
Yay,
Brown, and
Jennifer.
we're all excited.
Gorgeous.
Anything else, Michael?
Nope, that'll do it.
All
So
right.
if I've got one thing, I mean, in terms of our schedule and planning, for the future, with the vaccine rollout maybe being complete by the end of the summer or something, have you begun to factor that into your projections?
Yeah, Tony, you want to make comment to that? I just know that we've been working really closely with MV and really kind of projecting that ridership will begin to increase and how many employees we need kind of ongoing. And I would say that MV is in full hiring mode right now as far as getting training and folks on board. It's about a 6-week process from the time somebody walks in the door and is hired until they're actually certified and trained and ready to go behind the wheel. We found ways to reduce that. And it's just, I think the sense I'm getting, and Tony, you feel free to add, is that MV is really getting aggressive with hiring, knowing that we're turning some corners with the vaccine.
I think the message has been given to them loud and clear that, once Pleasanton announced that they were going to go back, I'm sure that the other school districts are taking an eye and watching what's going to happen there. And assuming that goes well, you'll probably see the other two back in classroom. So the Dublin one is kind of the scary one for us because, at dismissal time at Dublin High School, we have 12 buses at Dublin High School at dismissal time. That requires 12 drivers, and that's probably a few more than we do have right now, but MV is on notice that it's time to get hiring. And as Michael said, it does take 6 weeks in most cases to get somebody trained to operate a bus. And I have emphasized in every correspondence I've had with Dublin schools, I've had better luck with the principal at Dublin High School and with their public information officer as far as getting responses. But the principal is very supportive of our activities, and I've emphasized with her following the Pleasanton model of an A and B group, and perhaps only a limited number of students coming back at a time would enable us to provide a level of service. We had buses last year in Dublin that were carrying 60 or more students at a time. You can't do that and be 6 feet apart. You can only carry about 12. And so that's one of our challenges. I think the economy coming back, the vaccination process, I'm not even going to comment on it. I'm 64 years old. I just missed it. So, and unfortunately, with the way the rules keep changing, transit employees just got bumped down about 7 million people on the list. So we were fortunate that a connection with the Alameda County Office of Education, Michelle McDonald, who used to be with Dublin Schools, I contacted her and said, hey, there's this provision in the education sector on vaccinations that says school bus drivers qualify. Since we're the only school bus drivers, can you hook us up and get us moved back in line so that we can get our drivers vaccinated? So she took the lead, she took care of it, and Pleasanton Unified has now agreed to submit our bus drivers' names to Alameda County Office of Education so that we are now up in the education tier for vaccinations. So that's a great incentive for some of our drivers have actually been off since March because of fear of, contracting the virus. So this gives them a chance to come back to work. And get the vaccine. So working this from a number of different angles, trying to get some new drivers in the door, and then trying to get some of our drivers back who've been off for quite a while on leave of absence.
I got one other, go ahead.
Well, that was my last answer. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Can I
That's
just
as
make
good
a
as
quick,
it-
I believe came up with that, so that.
can I just make a quick comment? Tony, I'm not sure you're aware that my day job is at Dublin High School. So if
Oh.
you ever need to chat with me, I just letting you know I'm here.
Well, Maureen is really good about getting back to me. Maureen Byrne, who's the principal there at Dublin High School. We've had a great working relationship over the last 4 years, and she's fantastic to work with. But that's good to know.
Yes, she is phenomenal.
so I have a
Excellent.
question. Is there any thought of the schools staying open later during the summer just to make up time or anything like that? Or are they just going to keep to the normal school calendar?
My sus-
No, go ahead. I haven't heard anything like that.
I suspect not, because that would be a negotiated item with the teachers union and the classified employees union. I don't think anything's off the table, but that would probably be, it would probably start at the state level. I know the governor has floated some of those ideas in his negotiations with the California Teachers Association. But it would be a district decision, but they would get guidance from the California Teachers Association. And I haven't seen any of that come through at this point.
Is that anything else, Mr. Tree? Any other questions or comments? Any other future agenda items? Next meeting? Hello?
Yes, I was trying to see when your next meeting is. Would be March, I guess yours,
22nd.
March 22nd.
Great. I guess with that, we're adjourned.
Got it.
Bye.
See ya.